This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. A major development reportedly is in the making tonight in negotiations to buy Eastern Airlines. We hope to have full details before the broadcast is over. Otherwise, tonight's lead is about the Alaskan oil spill ship captain, a disaster comparable to Hiroshima, an architect of American tragedy. Those words were heard today with the surrender of the fugitive captain of the crippled Exxon Corporation supertanker, which gushed about 11 million gallons of oil into formerly unspoiled Alaskan waters. Work crews have finally refloated the tanker, but the worst oil spill in U.S. history now covers an area the size of Delaware, and the toll in dead wildlife continues to climb. Ron Allen begins our coverage.
Captain Joseph Hazelwood dropped out of sight shortly after being questioned about his role in the worst oil spill in U.S. history off the coast of Alaska. Today, Hazelwood surrendered at a courthouse not far from his hometown on Long Island. Authorities in Alaska have charged that he was drunk, reckless, and negligent when his ship struck a reef and spilled 11 million gallons of oil. The judge said he wanted to make sure that Hazelwood would not flee prosecution.
We have a destruction, a man-made destruction that probably has not been equaled since Hiroshima. Bond will be $1 million. Cash alternative is $500,000.
We think that the bail that was set was exorbitant, clearly excessive, and we're going to appeal it.
Tests taken hours after the accident have already determined that Hazelwood was under the influence of alcohol. He was not on the bridge when the ship ran aground. The third mate who was at the helm was not certified to pilot the ship through Prince William Sound, a waterway the Coast Guard has said is wide enough for a child to navigate. Reports from Alaska Today indicate the ship may have been on automatic pilot shortly before the accident. A British medical officer warned Exxon years ago about alcohol abuse among its officers.
Seafarers have always been known to have a higher incidence of alcohol problems caused by higher consumption than other people. They're in the top 20 of occupations who have alcohol problems.
Hazelwood is in jail tonight while his family tries to raise the bail. A hearing scheduled for 30 days from now will determine when he'll face charges in Alaska. Ron Allen, CBS News, New York.
6 tugboats eased the nearly 1,000-foot-long tanker off Bly Reef ahead of schedule today, 2 hours before high tide and 12.5 days after she ran aground. The ship is being towed to a bay already polluted by the spill, where divers will make temporary repairs. Permanent repairs may be done in Portland, Oregon, but there is concern there about accepting the ship.
Do we have the technology, literally, as they enter our waters in the state of Oregon, to trail behind them, cleaning up their mess as they go?
Mussels close up for 5 or 6 days, don't respirate at all when they're exposed to hydrocarbons.
Scientists know so little about spills in these northern waters and in such environmentally sensitive areas that few predictions can be made about the long-term impact. As the movement of oil is tracked out of Prince William Sound, there are worries the spill will scar some of the most spectacular coastline in the state, the shores of Kenai Fjords National Park on the Gulf of Alaska. Work crews are preparing more booms to be strung across the rugged inlets of the park, but nature controls the future.
The key here is wind. If we get wind out of the south, it'll blow it right into the shores.
Each day brings another rescue of sea otters struggling to clean themselves, shivering as their oil-soaked fur no longer protects them against the cold. 5 otters were sent to warmer weather to SeaWorld in California. One of those who started that trip was a youngster rescuers named Linus. But like so much of the wildlife here, Linus did not survive. John Blackstone, CBS News, Valdez, Alaska.
President Bush today approved widening his temporary suspension on imports of semi-automatic assault weapons. His latest move, appearing to inch away from the gun lobby on this issue, comes amid mounting public outrage over use of rapid-fire guns by drug traffickers and others bent on violence, and some calls for banning these weapons outright. CBS News White House correspondent Leslie Stahl has learned tonight that Mr. Bush's National Drug Policy Coordinator is recommending still more restrictions.
President Bush's review of semi-automatic assault weapons is to be completed by mid-June, but CBS News has learned that drug czar William Bennett has already sent his recommendation to the White House. According to administration sources, Bennett wants these weapons, both foreign-made and domestic, to be treated like machine guns. That means to own one, an individual would have to register and undergo a rigorous background investigation by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Anyone wishing to purchase such a weapon would have to pay a $200 tax, file fingerprints in a central registry, and notify the government any time the gun is moved across state lines. Bennett sent his proposal to the president over a week ago. The sources say the memo loosely defines these weapons based on appearance, referring to, quote, Rambo-looking rifles with a large clip, and calls on the BATF to find a way to differentiate these from semi-automatic hunting rifles. While a decision is pending, the president today expanded his earlier ban on imported semi-automatics.
The number of weapons involved on this expanded list is in excess of 250,000.
The president's initial ban covered only 80% of the foreign-made weapons. Today's action covers the remaining 20%. The reason the White House gave was unfair competition. Since his initial move last month, import requests for the 20% have increased dramatically.
There was indeed a surge, and permits went up considerably.
What about domestic manufacturing? Has that jumped up dramatically, too, to fill this void?
There has been an increase.
The president is being criticized again for not going far enough and banning the vast bulk of these weapons that are made in the USA.
You have to remember that a kid or someone being shot down by a semi-automatic weapon won't have time to check whether it's an import or whether it was made in the United States of America.
And yet, late today, a group of conservative senators and congressmen rushed over to the White House to express their fury to Chief of Staff John Sununu.
I believe that the president, with his announcement today, is on the edge of breaking with a commitment that he made to the American people during the campaign.
President Bush does seem to have come a long way since his no gun control campaign pledge, spurred on no doubt by the polls, showing overwhelming numbers favor a total ban of these weapons. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
What could be baseball's biggest scandal since gamblers fixed the 1919 World Series may be taking shape in Cincinnati. The most serious accusations yet were being linked to the man who once symbolized the spirit of the national pastime as a player named Charlie Hustle. Correspondent Frank Courier has today's developments.
There are new charges published today that Pete Rose bet up to $16,000 a day on baseball games. The charges are based on court documents which the Cleveland Plain Dealer says link Rose to Ronald Peters, a key figure in Major League Baseball's investigation into the Cincinnati manager. Peters is a Franklin, Ohio tavern owner who Internal Revenue Service documents say booked bets on baseball for a variety of people.
He will continue to cooperate with both the federal government and the Baseball Commission in any questions they might have.
While Pete Rose is not identified by name in the coded documents, they seem to describe a man by the name of Paul Jansen, who placed bets for an associate believed to be Rose. The record shows in the spring of '87, the bets averaged $2,000 per game on 4 to 8 games per day. While the documents do not say Rose bet on his own team, they do say an associate had a standing $200 bet on each Reds game. Thomas Giosa, a former Rose roommate, admits he regularly placed bets for Rose at the track, but not with bookies.
Do you know if he's ever wagered on baseball?
No, Pete Rose ain't never bet on baseball. I mean, I wouldn't know why he would bet on baseball.
Giosa's been invited to talk to Major League Baseball investigators who have already twice interrogated Peters.
I'm not going to comment on what I do or how I do it.
As Rose and the Reds warmed up for tonight's game against the Dodgers, baseball's chief investigator left town to return later without a comment or clue as to how much longer the inquiry will take. Frank Courier, CBS News, Cincinnati.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, Bill Plant on what are called encouraging new talks aimed at peace in the Mideast, and Susan Spencer on cheeseburgers as disease fighters, but only if you're a mouse.
Along with the fiber, are you getting something extra in your high-fiber cereal? All of these cereals contain sodium. And and added sugar. Fiber One, however, is low in sodium and has absolutely no added sugar. And you get more fiber in Fiber One. So get more of the fiber your body needs and less of the stuff it doesn't. Get Fiber One.
Make it easy on yourself.
Throw away the gloves and breathe easy with No Fumes Easy Off Oven Cleaner. It's the end of oven cleaning irritation because No Fumes Easy Off is different from the rest.
Make it easy on yourself.
It's heat activated, working without harsh chemicals to dissolve grease easily. No irritation, no gloves, no fumes.
Make it easy on yourself.
With No Fumes Easy Off.
I'm dead tired. So why am I wide awake?
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Nitol helps you feel drowsy so you can get your Z's.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Hey, denture wearers, don't miss the boat. Try my new Polydent. It now controls tartar for a better clean and freshens up dentures with that minty mouthwash ingredient. New Polydent Green, a better mouth freshening clean.
Haiti's military president survived one coup attempt last weekend, but apparently is facing another tonight. General Prosper Avril declared a state of emergency and placed the Haitian army on maximum alert. The Prime Minister of Israel held his first meeting with Secretary of State James Baker today. Back home, in what is described as an unrelated move, Israel freed hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Our State Department correspondent Bill Plant has the first report.
Israeli Prime Minister Shamir arrived in Washington ready to talk about peace in the Middle East, but not ready to talk to the PLO. The uprising known as the Intifada in Israel's occupied territories has created intense U.S. pressure on Israel to reduce tensions. Shamir's proposal? To allow elections in the territories, to choose Palestinians who would negotiate with Israel on limited self-rule, but only after the violence ends. U.S. officials say that's not enough. But in public, Secretary of State Baker was upbeat about Shamir's new ideas.
I think they were very encouraging. They hopefully will form the basis under which we can move the peace process forward.
But last night in New York, Shamir signaled that despite a U.S. decision to open a dialogue, there is no change in his opposition to doing business with the PLO.
Ending a victory to the PLO now will assure continued terrorism with greater ferocity.
Shamir counts heavily on the support of American Jews, but since the uprising has found their opinion more than usually divided. Today, his policies were publicly denounced by a group of liberals who claim negotiating with the PLO is the cutting-edge issue.
The purpose of this trip is to stall, is to create the appearance of some forward movement without the substance of the forward movement.
Egyptian President Mubarak, who left Washington almost as Shamir arrived but refused a meeting, also believes the Prime Minister is an obstacle to peace.
There should be something to tell the people we met, and there is hope for peace. But he's just closing all the doors.
Late this afternoon, officials on both sides were working to sweeten the proposals Shamir will take with him to the White House tomorrow when he tries to persuade President Bush that he is not closing all the doors. Bill Plant, CBS News, the State Department.
It was free at last on the Gaza Strip. Political prisoners, many of them between 12 and 16 years old, had their plastic manacles snapped by soldiers in what Israeli officials called a goodwill gesture before the Muslim feast of Ramadan. In Gaza, there was joy and thanksgiving in the street. On the West Bank, there was a sea of V for Victory signs and the instant formation of a boys' chorus from the camps. All in all, close to 500 Palestinians were released. That's less than 10% of the total. Israelis insisted it had nothing to do with the fact that Prime Minister Shamir was in Washington.
We are trying our best to solve this problem in a very democratic, very liberal way.
And the walls came tumbling down in the West Bank town of Kalkilia as Israelis opened an alley which had been sealed against stone throwers. Prisoners received a lecture called "Stop the Stones or You'll Be Back Behind Bars" before they were freed, but they were defiant, unrepentant, and cynical about why this was all happening today.
I think it's just nothing, just propaganda for Shamir and for his visit to the United States. Huh?
Officials in Jerusalem do not expect Shamir to come under heavy American pressure because of Washington's estimate that Israeli public opinion is not yet ripe for change. The Bush administration seems ready to wait long enough for Shamir's plans to lead nowhere and for the Intifada to become increasingly intolerable to a larger number of Israelis. Israeli reservists, officers mostly, demonstrated in Tel Aviv, calling on Shamir to open talks with the Palestinians.
We want to see that this thing is going to end somewhere, sometimes.
I don't want to have to tell my daughter later on, what have I done in those bad years?
After 5 bad months in a desert detention camp, Amir Arafia returned to his refugee camp near Jerusalem today. It was the homecoming of a hero. He had been anointed by the Israelis, a model for the next generation. In the rubble-strewn streets he calls home. Bob Simon, CBS News, Bethlehem.
U.S. officials today confirmed a report that's been around for a while saying the Soviet Union has sold Libya up to 15 advanced bombers. Such bombers could reach Israel without refueling. 6 of the Su-24D bombers are said to have already arrived. Fresh from his stay in Cuba, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev arrived tonight in Britain. Gorbachev was greeted at London's Heathrow Airport by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, one of his big European admirers. Also on his schedule is lunch at Windsor Castle with the Queen.
How strong is Extra Strength Tums EX? Heartburn strikes, Tums strikes back. Heartburn's gone that fast. Tums EX, twice as strong, twice as fast as regular Rolaids.
You've been searching for it all your life. Something rich that doesn't have a billion calories. Something sweet and non-fat with no added sugar. Introducing new Yoplait Light. Fresh, creamy yogurt and real fruit, lusciously blended with just a touch of NutraSweet and only 90 little calories. New Yoplait Light. The light at the end of the tunnel.
Right now, my head is throbbing. It feels like there are fire engines driving back and forth, smashing into the ends of my head.
Karen Claude is trying Extra Strength Tylenol gel caps. For pain like hers, nothing, not aspirin, not ibuprofen, works better.
I don't have a headache anymore. I mean, I feel great. Nothing in the front, nothing between here and this part. It's great.
New Extra Strength Tylenol gel caps. In the real world of everyday pain, nothing works better.
Major appliances that aren't brand new can scare potential buyers away. If your real estate company can't protect them, you're not listed with the right real estate company because you're not listed with an ERA broker.
An international conference on AIDS is scheduled to open tomorrow in California. A participant calls it an important educational exchange for healthcare providers and educators from all around the world. But tonight, a delegate to that conference is being held in a Minnesota jail. Gary Reeves explains why that sparked demonstrations.
AIDS activists took to the streets in St. Paul today, protesting the U.S. refusal to allow a Dutch researcher with AIDS to enter the country to attend an AIDS conference in San Francisco.
My aim to come to the United States is to fight the epidemic.
Hans-Paul Verhoef has been jailed since Sunday when he admitted having AIDS to customs agents at the Minneapolis airport who found the drug AZT in his luggage. His entry is being barred by a law passed to prevent the spread of disease, even though Verhoef is an AIDS prevention expert.
I think my aim is the same as the aim of the U.S. government, and I don't think there's any difference in that. I'm not intending to spread the virus.
A waiver enabling Verhoef to attend the National AIDS Forum is still pending. INS officials say they are simply following the law.
The law does state that he's not admissible to the United States as an AIDS carrier.
Verhoef's exclusion has sparked outrage among researchers worried this will cripple the international effort to fight the disease.
I think to put somebody in federal prison who is an international delegate representing his country and representing his AIDS organization in prison, in federal prison in our country, is archaic.
The controversy has clouded next year's International AIDS Conference in San Francisco. Some congressmen want the Justice Department to clear the way by allowing AIDS workers unrestricted travel.
The irony of it all is that this is all in the interest of preventing AIDS, and the premise that the INS decision would be based on is that it would spread AIDS.
The U.S. has already turned down about a dozen immigrants with AIDS, but Verhoef may be the first temporary visitor to be barred. An appeal of his exclusion is scheduled before an immigration judge tomorrow. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Chicago.
For the second time in 2 weeks, the Strategic Air Command has ordered the nation's entire fleet of B-1B bombers grounded for inspection. Latest problem for the Rockwell-built nuclear Air Force bomber, the ejection hatches on the B-1Bs have popped off in flight. The U.S. House of Representatives voted today for a single nationwide poll closing time in presidential election years. This change is aimed at trying to end complaints that election results reported after the polls close in eastern states may affect results in the West, where the polls are still open. Final approval of this national poll closing time is still required in the Senate.
Ordinary windows versus windowscaping. Windows, windowscaping. Windows, windowscaping. See the windowscaping experts only at the Pella Window Store.
On your path to success, reach for America's strongest financial helping hand, Citicorp and Citibank. More American families own their own homes and attend college with our help. And more get what they want with MasterCard and Visa cards from Citibank than from any other company. We also serve millions of customers in every major marketplace worldwide. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
Hot tea all day doesn't stop this denture era from hitting high C.
Hot tea? Fix-it-ent and forget it.
Give up hot chocolate just because I started wearing dentures? Scamp!
Hot chocolate? Fix-it-ent and forget it. Heat-resistant Fix-it-ent spreads evenly to keep on fixing loose spots, no matter how often it gets hot.
I can drink hot coffee all day and still help a lady.
Heat-resistant. One more reason to use Fix-it-ent and forget it.
If you treat your hemorrhoidal problems with a cream, try new Preparation H Cream, a soothing cream with a pleasant scent. It helps shrink swelling of tissues as it often relieves pain and itching for hours. New Preparation H Cream from doctor-recommended Preparation H.
Strike-bound and largely grounded since March 4th, financially troubled Eastern Airlines reportedly will be sold tonight. Rumors of a sale have circulated for weeks. A group led by former baseball commissioner Peter Ueberroth appears to have made the winning pitch. Mark Phillips has all the latest in Washington. Mark?
Sources close to the investigation say the deal to sell Eastern Airlines is imminent, to be announced very likely this evening. The selling price is $460 million. The buyer is Peter Ueberroth, the former baseball commissioner and Olympic organizer who had tried to buy the airline last week. Ueberroth has been rumored as a potential buyer, one welcomed by the striking unions.
He was good for baseball, and he'll be good for Eastern Airlines and the employees.
In fact, the deal will include the employees. Texas Air has already agreed to sell the Eastern Northeast shuttle to New York developer Donald Trump. In today's bid, Ueberroth will hold 30% of Eastern himself, give 30% to the unions in exchange for contract concessions, and outside investors will own the rest. It is only with substantial financial concessions that Eastern can make a go of it, concessions the striking unions were unwilling to make to Frank Lorenzo, Eastern's current owner. Under the ownership of Peter Ueberroth, Eastern hopes to begin its expanded schedule on April 10th, the court's willing. Dan?
Thank you very much, Mark. In Warsaw, Lech Wałęsa and communist leaders signed a revolutionary agreement today. This legalizes the Solidarity Union, bringing the once banned labor movement in from the cold. It provides for eventual free elections, but also calls for harsh economic reforms. One poll said the agreement may be good for her great-grandchildren, but that for her, it's too late. The United States quickly praised the agreement and hinted future economic aid. Vietnam said today it will complete its military withdrawal from Cambodia by the end of September and thus end its 11-year occupation. But it said the troops could return unless China and other countries halt aid to guerrillas fighting Cambodia's Vietnam-backed government. Prosecutors in Sweden said today they will formally charge a suspect in the 1986 murder of Prime Minister Olof Palme. The suspect is identified as one 42-year-old Christer Peterson, who has a long criminal record. He was arrested last December. Swedish investigators are said to believe he acted alone.
corner of Albany Street where
No
the
vegetables, huh?
No time.
The American Dietetic Association says vegetables are an important part of a balanced diet.
The city fathers, in a combined effort
No
to
salad.
Too busy.
You need a V8.
When you can't get to eat vegetables, you can drink them. One delicious glass of V8 juice provides a serving of vegetables.
Didn't drink your V8, did you, Frank?
Drink V8. Keep your diet straight.
Ready? L.A.
The LA
90
office.
calls to
LA.
What's your total?
I'm not.
Okay, Boston.
Boston.
Normal, right?
No.
Chicago?
Chicago.
Richard?
Look, you have the MCI bill.
Yeah.
I have AT&T.
Yeah.
MCI does it all in one. AT&T's bills are all over the place.
Oh, you want to switch?
Definitely.
MCI. We are the better long-distance company.
We're here at the new Disney MGM Studios theme park for the premiere of the 1990 Chevy Lumina. The Lumina sedan has the most passenger room in its class. And coming later this year, the Lumina Coupe and the new Lumina all-purpose vehicle with optional seating for 7, no matter what your size. Introducing the family Lumina from today's Chevrolet.
The heartbeat of America. That's today's Chevrolet.
Chevy Lumina, official car of the Disney MGM Studios theme park.
See you real soon.
You may remember that in the Woody Allen movie Sleeper, great tasting food that is bad for you turned out to be good for you. That was fantasy. And then this week, it all seemed to be happening in the real world. So we asked medical correspondent Susan Spencer to look into it.
For a moment, it seemed every dieter's dream would come true. A report that cancer-fighting chemicals are present in, of all things, greasy old hamburger. And what luck, also in cheese. Could it be, then, cheeseburgers an anti-cancer drug?
Fights cancer? That's wonderful. I love it. Now I can go and have as many cheeseburgers as I want without even worrying about it, right?
Fights cancer? I'd say it's great.
Not so fast. The study was done in mice. Its author says he never meant people should set up house at McDonald's. In any case, they'd have to eat mountains of burgers to get enough of the cancer-fighting chemical. As for what else they'd get...
This chemical comes in a package just oozing with fat and cholesterol. And that's the very stuff we should be eating less of.
We should eat more fruits and vegetables. We should eat lean beef, low-fat milks, low-fat cheese. Low-fat products in general are what we should strive for.
That's what people have been hearing for some time, but then they also hear that apples are dangerous, that corn has mold, that some grapes can kill you.
Well, I hear so many contradictions from the media that I'm not surprised. I actually don't know what to believe.
Experts only hope the burger as cancer drug report will be kept in perspective.
It's a little bit like saying Attila the Hun once brought flowers to his mother. You know, that's nice, but there's some other problems with the guy.
Too bad. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Washington.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, see you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith. Tomorrow, Jimmy Johnson, the new coach of the Dallas Cowboys, also Raymond Burr, TV's Perry Mason, coming up tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.